Hello, friends. We did a wonderful session of EFT today morning and on request because it was not recorded earlier when we did it in the morning. See, EFT is always a very fluid kind of a technique which keeps changing. So I did not think it was required to record it because we'll be doing it again and again. We'll be doing it every Sunday and we're going to be doing it with new topics. So I had not recorded this. My apologies. So here is a recording. I'm redoing this entire thing and sharing it with you. I hope it helps you now. Thank you so much for your feedback, for your inputs. So we always begin with the question of why is my life so hard? Why do I have to go through all these difficulties? Why am I going through all this pain? Why me? Is one of the first questions that brings us towards healing, any kind of healing for that matter, right? And why do you think this happens? See, life is a sequence of situations, of circumstances. And it's like, uh, it's just ups and downs, right? So, at any point of time, there's always something exciting going on in your life, if you think of it that way. Otherwise, it's always like either the high moments or the low moments. And it is very important to have these in life. So, have you seen that when you go to a toy store, there is this children's scooter? Uh, they call it the scooter. The child sits on it, there is a wheel, and the child turns the wheel. And only when the child turns the wheel does this vehicle move ahead. Our life is also like that. If you don't take those deviations, those turns, you don't make those certain choices in life, you do not move ahead. So without those downs, there are going to be no ups in life. Okay. But what we think about all the time is why is this happening to me? And let's just try and decode what this was all about. I call it the Chakravyuh Rachana. Okay. So when you're asking, why is this happening? There is a certain belief system which is in place in your mind, which tells you that this keeps happening to you all the time, right? Now, this happens because there was initially a situation. Probably you faced something traumatic, okay? And this situation, what it did was, it was totally unexpected, okay? And it was something that you had not even imagined, you had not even expected, even the faintest of, you had never thought this would happen. And because it was so unexpected, it was very dramatic. You felt like you were in the middle of a drama and you were like just helpless watching. You couldn't react, okay? And because of all these reasons, you felt extremely isolated. You felt all alone. You felt helpless. You felt that you couldn't do anything in that situation because you had no plan. Now, this is what results in what we call the big T or the small t. The big T is the big trauma, and the small t is the small trauma. Now, small trauma can be anything as small as maybe, just someone ticking you off just because they were in a bad mood. You even forget about it later. But it does pinch you. That criticism does hurt you, right? And a big T can be anything as big as physical abuse or sexual abuse, whatever it is. Okay. So, whenever we are facing a certain situation which has this UDIN, unexpected, it is dramatic, it is isolating, and we do not have any plan, and we are totally helpless in that situation, what kicks in is our reptilian brain, our amygdala, which has the duty to save us from any kind of traumatic situation. So, what happens at this time is there are certain hormones, especially cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which is released into our bloodstream. Now, Dr. Candice Pert had done a lot of research on this, and she's written a whole lot of books on this. And she proved it, that when we are in a state of stress, the there is a cellular memory which is created. These peptides are the molecules which carry these stress hormones to every single part of our, every single cell in our body. So even if you are like, if somebody, you get embarrassed in front of maybe a few people when you have to stand up and speak, you're having a stage fright, and all of a sudden you blush. So why does your entire body, your face blush? How does it come to know that you're feeling embarrassed or you're feeling very uncomfortable in that situation? How does that happen? How does someone wet their pants when they're so scared? See, this is not just restricted to certain organs in our body. It's our entire body that gets affected. And this is because of the hormones. And it is also called as the amygdala hijack, because at that time, this prefrontal, the frontal part of our brain, goes off to sleep. And our reptilian brain, okay, this part of our brain, the amygdala, the medulla oblongata, which is responsible for our reflexes, for our emotions, kicks off. Okay. So here what happens is there is a cocktail, wonderful cocktail of cortisol and adrenaline, which is taking place. And this results in what we know as fear. We experience fear. Now, fear is one of the most primary emotions that we experience. Okay. So fear is like the first gear of our car, but we cannot move ahead on first gear, right? So we need to put it in second, third, and fourth gear. So once we experience fear, we take the following actions. One of the following actions. The first is fight. When do we resort to fight? When we know that our opponent, the person, that situation can be handled, can be tackled. So then we fight that situation, or we fight the opponent. Okay. But what if we know that the opponent is stronger than us? If the situation is more greater than us and we cannot do much about it, what is the next thing that we try to do? Udanchu. We try to run away from there. That is the flight. Okay. So if we are not able to fight, then we try to flee the situation. Let me give you an example for both. One is the fight situation, wherein you can probably think about you fighting up for your rights. You say, yes, I'm going to do it. In Even though you're scared, you're ready to fight. Say, supposing I have experienced this, I was walking alone at night and I noticed that there was a bike which was coming behind. There was a man on the bike and he honked the horn twice. It was a lonely road. My first reaction was to take my chappals out. Now this is your fight, which is kicked in. Now next is your flight, which comes in. So the best example that I can think about, how many of you have seen this, the movie The Bachelor, wedding jitters? So as the wedding date nears, the reaction is, let me run away from there. There's a movie, I think, Julia Roberts also, The Runaway Bride, right? So this is your flight which is kicking in. So let me run, escape from that situation. We do it almost every day. One of the best examples I can give you is somebody has given you a call, you're supposed to return his money back, and you are like, I'm not there, I'm going away. Even before this person calls on me, let me run away from here. This is your flight kicking in because you're scared that you have to face that person, right? So when you're not able to do either the fight or the flight, now the third thing which kicks in is the freeze. Okay. We are frozen to the spot. I'm sure you have seen those wildlife videos where, the lion is going to pounce on the animal and the animal just acts like this, it's dead. And even the predator is like, what happened? I mean, it was alive and it's died. And it just walks off. And this person is saved. This animal is saved. See, the freeze kicks in when you realize that you can neither fight nor can you run away from that situation. Okay. So many times we feel numb. We are rooted to the spot, we say, na, that I felt so dumbstruck. I felt so frozen that I couldn't react. I couldn't do anything. Haven't we all felt it, especially in childhood? See, so many times our parents are shouting down at us, and we also shout at our kids, okay? And our children have that lost expression on their face and they're just looking. They cannot run away and they cannot fight us. So they're frozen. But that doesn't mean that they're not being affected by what we are saying, or that we were not affected by what our parents say, right? Now, this is what is the freeze response. So, whenever there is a freeze response taking place, there are certain thoughts that dominate in your mind. They are also called as distorted thinking patterns. Okay, this is something which is worked on in CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. Okay, so these thoughts repeatedly keep coming up when you face a similar situation, and they keep, it's like you're loading on one on top of the other. The layers keep getting added on. Okay, now every single thought leads to a particular emotion because we attach a meaning to it. Okay, it is important for us because we are involved in it. There is an affirmation in it. Okay, so whenever we have certain emotions, please understand that emotions are experienced in our body, and the thoughts are what we find in our mind. Okay, the thoughts lead to the emotions in our body. Emotion is energy in motion. It's basically energy that we experience in our body in different forms. It can be in anger, in sadness, in joy, in love. There's so many ways that we can experience emotions, right? So when these emotions keep, they, when we experience them, they are usually either expressed out or they are stored in. Okay, we either act them out or we act them in. These are one, this is one of the two ways that we actually deal with emotions. Okay, we try very little to analyze or understand them because we haven't been taught. Frankly speaking, how many of our parents have taught us, beta, this is your emotion, this is how you're supposed to deal with them? No, right? If you're crying, go sit in that corner. If you're angry, you better get punished. I mean, this is how it has been all this while, right? So when you have not seen anyone modeling a behavior that needs to be done, then from where are you going to learn it? First point. Now, second is, do you even know what emotions you're experiencing at any point of time? See, just think about it for a second. How many of us women cry when we are angry? I used to. I don't know about you, but most of us do, right? So we're not supposed to express our anger. In so many households, it's not considered the norm to be able to express your anger, right? Because anger is a bad emotion, right? Now, similarly, if you'll notice, how many of the men have been told that it's fine to sit and cry? Very few, right? Don't be a sissy. You're being a girl. Why are you sitting and crying? Be a good boy. Stop crying. Wipe your tears. Boys don't cry, right? So we don't even know how to express these emotions. Men usually express sadness as anger, and women usually express anger as sadness. Wonderful, right? Children, ask about children. When they're hungry, they feel angry, they feel frustrated, they start crying. It's because they're not in tune with their emotions. None of us are, and it's not our fault. But the healing is in our hands. Okay? And that is what we are attempting to do here through joining hands. So, whenever we keep experiencing certain emotions, we either act out, as in we project it on the other person, the third party. Very frequently, I used to do this. I used to shout at my children when I used to get angry because I did not know where else I could express it, where else I could take it out. It was not possible for me to take it out on my in laws, on my husband, or on anybody else. So, children were freely available. Same thing. So many of us, even my husband, probably he used to have a bad day at office, and he used to come back and he used to be irritated and he used to take it out on everybody at home. We've all done this, right? Yeah. So when we are acting out, we tend to act out on people who are probably who have nothing to do with the reason for your emotion in the first place, which is not very nice, right? And second, even worse, many of us do this, is we act in. So what we do basically is, because we are not comfortable being vulnerable, it is not okay to be weak. We are strong people, right? A strong woman, a strong man. So we're not supposed to express our emotions. It's not very nice. You cannot be telling that you're weak and you're feeling emotionally down. People will think you're cuckoo, yaar. Right? Wrong. Okay. So whenever you're trying to hold on, you're trying to shove those emotions inside yourself, in your minds, in your hearts, in your souls. And that is when we experience all those pains and aches and discomforts and diseases. Disease is nothing but feeling totally uncomfortable with yourself. There is no ease. Okay. So these emotions over a period of time, as you keep storing them in your body, and we tend to store them in specific parts of our body. So I don't know how many of you will be experiencing migraine headaches. You must be saying, I have a terrible migraine. So probably that is where you're storing your emotions. Okay. There are some people who say, I feel a big knot in my stomach, or I feel that, my shoulders ache a lot. Or I myself used to have a lot of lower back pain. So we tend to store our emotions in certain areas. Okay. So when we keep storing these emotions over a period of time, we experience psychosomatic ailments. Somatic in the body, because emotions are always experienced in our body. Okay. Now, these emotions over a period of time, as you keep collecting them, it becomes your belief system. Why? Because when we keep repeating certain emotions, there are more than 64,000 emotions that we experience in our life. But how many of them can we name? I can name probably 7 or 8 of them. I don't know how many you can name. So it's very important to have an emotional vocabulary, to know what emotions we experience at different points of time. Okay. So whenever we are experiencing these emotions, what happens is we ask ourselves certain questions. Our mind is like a computer. Okay. You ask it a question, it is bound to give you an answer back. It has to. There is no other way. If you input a question into the computer, you have to get an answer back, right? If you put a bullshit question, you're going to get a bullshit answer. Simple as that. So our belief system, I'll give you an example. If you say, oh, oh no, I don't know why this is happening to me. Why does this keep happening to me all the time, God? And then a voice inside your head says, oh, you dumbo, you deserve this. That's why this keeps happening to you. So you asked an idiotic question and you got an idiotic answer back. This is how our mind works. Okay. So probably in one of the sessions, we can, the last session, when we'll be doing affirmations for positivity, we can deal with how to, change the affirmations in such a way that it brings about change. It brings about transformation in our life. We'll do that. Okay. So our belief systems, basically, they come from the questions that we ask in our minds. Okay. The focus that we give to these questions, how much of attention we give to these questions. So if you're constantly asking yourself this question 23 hours out of 24 hours, then you're really concentrating on that question of, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And you keep getting the answer, because you deserve this, because you deserve this. So you have done a PhD on why me. So what do you think? What frame of mind or what emotions would you be in when your mind keeps telling you, you deserve this, you deserve this? You're feeling down in the dumps, right? Because your entire focus is there. So the more we give attention to something, the more it grows. And the more we deny it, the more it's going to expand. Okay. So we need to learn to deal with it, to walk through that fear that we have. Okay. And the third aspect, whenever there is a belief system in place, the meaning that we give to it, the attention or the focus we give to it, and our physiology is the third part. Physiology is our body. Okay. Just like the emotions in our body will lead to a certain physiology. So, if you just close your eyes for a second and think of a very extremely sad moment in your life, probably something terrible happened at that time, and you were totally lost, you were dejected, you were heartbroken. So, just feel that situation, get into that experience, see where you were, who was with you, what were the words of the people around you, what were the smells like, what did you feel like on the inside. And now when you open your eyes, I just want you to notice your body physiology. How are you breathing? Is your breathing shallow or is it energetic? How are your shoulders? Are they stooped or are they back straight? How did you feel inside your body? And now again, if you close your eyes for a moment and think of a very happy situation which brought you a lot of joy, a lot of pleasure, and think of that particular situation and experience it. Experience that joy flooding your veins and visualize the people around you, the situation which brought you so much joy, whatever that situation was. How did you feel? And now open your eyes. Just notice, silently notice your breathing. Is it more deeper? How are your shoulders? Are they back? Are they straight? How do you feel inside yourself? Wonderful, right? So, have you noticed that the emotions will change your physiology? Correct? So, if you are depressed, you normally have a stoop. You normally look down, right? If you're angry, you're going to be clenching your teeth, clenching your wrists, and your entire body is going to be firm, right? And if you're scared, so how our emotions affect our body? And similarly, the physiology also affects the emotions. Now, this is what we make use of in EFT and also in certain parts of hypnosis. So, if you change, we do this very frequently in NLP also. So, whenever you change the physiology of your body, you have a very strong, chance of changing your emotions or your mood also. Okay. Because ultimately, what happens is the body is our only reality. This is where we experience everything. And until and unless we experience something in the body, be it joy, be it sorrow, it has no meaning for us. It doesn't get integrated at all into our lives. Okay. So, what happens is when that body physiology, okay, it keeps getting affected in a certain way repeatedly over a period of time. I told you it's those situations. Okay. Then what happens is we get triggered. Now, what are triggers? When we are facing a similar situation, not the same situation, a similar situation, immediately our thoughts will say, oh, you know, Ashwini, last time this happened and then that happened and this is what happened. Immediately, I will react in a certain way. My emotions will make me react in a certain way. Okay. That is because that belief system is telling me this is what had happened. This is what is again going to happen. Like how I was walking on that lonely street at night and there was a bike coming from behind. What was my first thought? My first thought is that person who's coming from behind is either trying to snatch my chain or may try to kidnap. Of course, that's difficult, but you never know. So these are the thoughts that you get in your mind, right? That's a belief system. Okay. So those make you triggered. And those triggers will make you behave in the same way again and again. Now, when your belief system is the same, then your behavior is going to be the same because it depends on your belief system. Okay. And when you keep behaving in a certain way, in a predictable way, now this becomes our attitude, because attitude is what we show in front of others. Okay. And if it becomes your attitude, then that is the reality of your life. That is who you are. Okay. It doesn't mean that it cannot be broken. We can always break this chakra view. There are various ways to do it, EFT being one of them, one of the most effective modalities. Okay. Now, another thing that I would like to mention here is any kind of a situation which is stressful will release the cortisol and adrenaline, will lead to the amygdala hijack, will lead to emotions, to thoughts, emotions, beliefs, right? We went through this cycle. I also want you to note that if you're experiencing any kind of a pain, be it emotional, be it physical, even physical pain, please note that the pain only starts after the stress ends. What does that mean? So, see, I'll give you an example. Past 3 months, since December, I've been doing around 10 to 12 kilometers per day. Okay. So, initially, the first day when I did it, I came back home, I slept through the night, and next day morning, my calf muscles were aching like anything. They did not ache when I was doing it, but they pained the next day. Similarly, if you're facing any kind of a pain, it is usually, whether it is physical or it is psychological or emotional, it is usually after the stressful situation ends or at the end of the stressful situation. Okay. And here comes the difference between pain and suffering. Now, what is pain and what is suffering? Pain is usually what we are dealing with, okay? And suffering is how we take it. If I have to give you a very simple example, my brother, he is disabled. He's got cerebral palsy, which is lifelong, it's a degenerative disorder. Okay. So he's been born with that condition. So if you ask him, how are you? His name is Prashant. Okay, Prashant Kamath. So if you ask him, how are you? He's going to say, Badhiya. Very nice. He's going to be always excited and talk about Alana, Falana, Dhimkana, whatever he's doing in his life. Now, here comes your lesson, because pain is there. A pain of being dependent on somebody else, of not being able to do what he wants to do the way he wants to do it. But how much is the suffering? Negligible, right? Because he did not allow that pain to affect him. He's not allowing that pain to rule his life. Okay. So many of us do that. Now, simple example is, say, supposing in my house, okay, we all catch the cold. Okay. So if I have the cold, I'm going to be reacting in a different way. My daughter is going to be reacting in a different way. My mom in a different way. My brother in a different way. My husband in a different way. My son in a different way. One ailment and so many different reactions, right? So pain is all about perception. Okay. Pain is all about how much your threshold is, and it differs from person to person. Suffering is what that is. That threshold is called suffering. Okay. Pain can be same. So many of them can have cancer. All of them can have the same disease. But what is their level of suffering? That can differ from person to person. Okay. And here EFT can help you lower your rate of suffering. Okay. Whether it be chronic pain or acute pain. And whenever we face any kind of a psychosomatic issue, what do? We always get back to this, right? Why me? Why me? And that is why I thought it best to begin by at least, unraveling this question of why is life so hard. Look at your emotions. Okay, it's like this street, all jam packed, all going crisscross, all going haywire. You have no idea कौन सी गाड़ी कहाँ से क्या निकल रही है. This is what is actually happening in our minds, right?
गोलमाल है भाई, सब गोलमाल है, गोलमाल है, सब गोलमाल है, हर गोलमाल है भाई, सब गोलमाल है, हर सीधे रास्ते की एक टेढ़ी चाल है, सीधे रास्ते की एक टेढ़ी चाल है, गोलमाल है भाई, सब गोलमाल है, गोलमाल
सब गोलमाल है. So for thousands of years, our Indians have known it, the Chinese have known it. We have, you may call it chi, you may call it prana, you may call it meridians, but these are energy lines, okay? Energy meridians. They go through our entire body in a circuit, just like that street that I had shown earlier. So this energy, it's like a two-way street, going up and going down, okay? So if there is blockage in any path of this energy, we experience it as psychosomatic ailments, okay? And EFT helps us clear these blockages instantly. And as I mentioned, we love storing emotions. We don't like sharing it, right? We either donate it, we give it out, we actually throw it out like bricks on others' heads, or we tend to store it. This is from Heart Math Institute. And that brings us to EFT. And that's a topic for today. So just briefly touch on what are the benefits of EFT. It's extremely effective on all issues. Okay, we use it in combination with hypnosis, both to associate with certain belief patterns and also to dissociate from certain habits of belief patterns. So it works both positive as well as negative. So it's not just to let go or release of negative emotions, but also to reinforce positive ones. Effects are instant, and it's proven method which is used in case of panic attacks and PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder, especially noted in case of abuse victims and war veterans, especially during the Vietnam War. And since then, all the war veterans have been trained to perform EFT on themselves. And it has been proven that they are much more effective than any other modality at that moment when they're going through that particular anxiety episode or panic attack. It's absolutely painless and non-invasive. It's not like you're putting acupuncture needles inside you or doing anything. No side effects, no contraindications. You can practice it by yourself. So you don't need a therapist to do it for you. Once you learn how to do it, you just acquire it and then you learn, practice, practice, practice. That is all it takes. You don't need extra skill set for this. And the only tool you need is your own body. This, what I have noticed with EFT is that I have been able to identify my emotions much better than before because of this. So my emotional vocabulary has increased. And not only that, my emotional awareness has also increased because I catch emotions even before I experience them in my body, even when they are in the thought form. And that way it really helps. And because of this, I said clarity of thought. Your thoughts become very clear. You know exactly what's going to happen next. And that really helps you. Okay. You're able to identify your issues and you're able to address them at the right time when it is required. It's very short, it's gentle, it's easy to practice. It's a transformational tool, and I want you to experience this. There is no analysis paralysis. So you don't have to sit and analyze or try to integrate what happened. You just go on with the procedure and see what comes next. What do you feel next in your body? You basically connect with your body, you connect with your emotions, you connect with your feelings. And it's extremely empowering. It releases blocked energy. It can also help incorporate or anchor positive feelings and emotions. And because this practice is so easy and it can be done, I think it just requires around 10-15 minutes of your time. So it builds in a very positive routine. It's a very positive thing that you can do in the beginning of the day, and it works wonderful. It helps you nurture self-acceptance and self-love. This is something that we all struggle with, right? So EFT is one tool that I found which begins with the process of self-acceptance and leads you towards self-love. It's a wonderful modality. And if you're struggling with self-love, this is one of the first things that you should be trying. It can be used with any form of therapy or modality. You can do EFT with hypnosis, you can do it with inner child healing, you can do it with Reiki, you can do it with pranic healing, you can do it with anything. So it's just like, it's a practice. It's something that can be augmented, incorporated into any modality of therapy. And it blends in wonderfully. You can do it even for very small children, as young as maybe a few months old. Okay, you physically don't have to tap on them also. You can just tap on their field. Okay, so you don't have to do physically touch the person also. You can just do it. You can visualize that you are doing it there. And this is one of the reasons why it works wonderfully well in distance sessions also. Okay, there's something called energy EFT, which Daniel Craig has just come up with. And he says you can do it remote. You don't even have to do it in front of the person. You don't have to sit and touch the person either. Okay. Now, coming to the process of EFT, it's very simple. They're just 4 steps, 5 steps. So the first is identifying the issue. So the first question that you need to ask yourself is, what is the emotion that I'm feeling? Okay. What is this emotion that I'm feeling in my body? What is the reason for this emotion? There is a reason that this emotion has come, right? What was it? What brought it on? What was going on in my life at that time when I experienced this emotion? What is going on? Why did it come about? What was the reason? And what brought it on? Most importantly, what is it that I'm feeling in my body? Second question, is this even mine or someone else's? Okay. So most of the time what we do is we carry over emotions of the others, right? So when somebody is cranky and yells at you, you go and yell at the other person. That is not your emotion to carry. It's somebody else's. So only if it is your emotion to carry, take responsibility for it and try to deal with it. But if it is not yours to carry, it's high time you let it go, right? Also, please ask yourself at this stage whether I'm a blamer or a shamer. We tend to blame the other person. He did this, she did this, should have done that, didn't do that. Because of that, I'm experiencing this. Should have, could have, would have. Okay. We also tend to shame people, right? Most importantly, we shame ourselves. So ask yourself if this emotion belongs to you or to somebody else. Is someone else shaming you? Is someone else judging you, guilt tripping you, blaming you, or are you doing it? Okay. Third question, where in my body do I feel this emotion? Now, this is very important because it gives us the somatic address. It gives you the exact location where you have stored this emotion. So when you know exactly the address, अगर पोस्ट भेजना है, चिट्ठी भेजनी है, तो पता तो चाहिए ना. You need the address. Similarly, if you have to deal with your emotion, you also need a somatic address. You need to know where it is stored. where we also do the exercise of something called as body mapping. It's one of the tools that we use when we're working with children also. It works wonderfully well. If you have seen those stick diagrams that we draw, one face and two eyes and a nose and two stick hands and legs, yes, you can always do that. So just draw yourself on a paper, and you can just point out to where is it that you feel this emotion. What does this emotion feel like? What is the color of this emotion? What is the smell of this emotion? What is the sound of this emotion? What is the vibration of this emotion? What is the direction of movement of this emotion? How does it rotate? So all of these things bring about a beautiful, what we call a metaphor. Okay. So whenever we bring about, we insert an adjective into this emotion, we are able to identify it, understand it even better. It makes it a wholesome experience because you're able to understand what it is all about. Okay. So body mapping can be done either by drawing on a piece of paper, or you can just close your eyes and do a mental scan of your body and see where is it that you're experiencing any pain, any discomfort, any stiffness, any firmness in your body. Okay. You will know the somatic address. You will know it. Okay. Because it is your body and it is your emotions. So once you know where it is, just see what is the metaphor that is associated with this emotion. So there are so many people who tell me that I feel like my heart is going to jump out, or I feel like my heart is broken to pieces, or I feel like my stomach is, twisted. I feel like my head is going to burst. I feel like my chest is like a balloon that is going to burst. So, what does it feel like? What does this particular emotion feel like to you? Okay. So, what does it look like to you? What is the color? What is the size? What is the shape? What is the chroma? What is the hue? Try and see as many details as you can in your mind's eye. It really helps you understand. Once you do this, the fourth question is, how is this emotion or belief serving you? And this is a very important question, because any belief system to come into play has taken a very long time. We went back to that slide where we spoke about the belief system, right? There is a meaning which we associate with it, and there is an attention that we give it repeatedly. We focus on it for a long time, and there is a physiology which is involved in it. Three things required for a belief system. So, this belief system, which is very firm inside your mind, in your heart, in your life, how is it serving you? Okay. So, what is its gift to you? I'll give you an example. There was this lady who had come to me. Her son has brought her to me. Okay, because the mother is scared of sleeping at night. She keeps waking up the children through the night. Okay, she doesn't allow anybody to sleep at night because she's scared, and she doesn't allow anybody to go outside the house also. Okay, she wants someone or the other to be there with her all the time. So when we were trying to do this particular exercise, I just asked her to visualize a life when her fear has gone away. Okay, her fear of being alone has just evaporated, vanished. How is your life? How does it feel like? And you know what she said? It's so lonely. It's so sad. There is no one with me. I feel all alone. There's no use in me living anymore then. Nobody's going to look at me either. See how the belief system is serving her? That particular fear that if I'm alone, something is going to happen to me, is actually saving her from feeling lonely. So how is this emotion or belief system serving you? That is something that we need to ask ourselves. How is it helping me? What is the plus that it's giving to me? So many times we are not ready to let go of a particular negative emotion or belief system because we don't want to. We don't want to heal. And why we don't want to heal? is because there is always a payback. There's always something that we're getting out of it, right? So you need to ask yourself, okay? Once we have identified the issue, we go to the mapping of its intensity. Here I've given a scale, what is called as a pain scale, and it's given from 0 to 10, 0 being no pain, and 10 being the worst possible. Okay, I cannot handle this anymore. But what I do with my clients very frequently is I ask them to scale from -10 to +10. -10 being the worst possible, 0 being neutral, and 10 being very positive, and life is jingalala. It's beautiful. Okay. So we always scale from -10 to +10. So for a person who has come with certain issues, maybe at -10, -9, -8, whatever, you bring them to a point of 0 itself is a huge achievement. Because if you notice, with each point, there is a 10% change which is taking place. A 10% improvement is a huge thing if you're able to do it in 5 or 10 minutes flat, right? And we notice not 10 or 20, but we notice more than 60 to 80% of change. So a person who comes in with the -9 or a -10, if he is able to even go to 0, that's 100% change. And that's transformation. Now, this intensity is usually marked only by the client and not by the therapist, for the reason that the person is the only one who knows what the intensity of this particular issue is, right? So this is usually done even before we begin the session, for the reason that after the session you feel, oh, मैं तो पहले से ही ठीक था, everything was fine, I did not have any issue at all. And that is what happens after you do an EFT, because it's so fast, it's so rapid, and it's so transformational. You feel, okay, seriously, I mean, you're like, this can't be happening, right? So we usually ask them to mark even before we start or begin the session. So map your intensity, okay? From a scale of -10 being the worst possible, 0 being neutral, and from there work yourself from 0 to +10. So you're feeling very positive, very calm, very relaxed. The third is establishing a phrase, which is the most important part of EFT. So it basically deals with this particular issue that you're trying to address. So the main point is that you should acknowledge this negative issue. What do we do with any other modality? The first thing we do is we try to change it, right? Because it's a negative system, a negative belief system, a negative thought, it needs to be changed. Here, the first thing you do is you acknowledge the presence of this negative issue and you accept it. You accept that particular issue and you accept yourself despite the issue. How wonderful can it be? So there's something called as a 12-step procedure, which is done in Alcoholic Anonymous, or even in cases of PTSD or abuse, narcissistic abuse victims. It's called a 12-step procedure. The first step of the procedure is accepting that you have a problem. Because until and unless you are able to accept that you have a problem, there is no scope for change. Correct? So one of the first things that we do in EFT is we acknowledge the presence of this negative issue or belief. And when we do it, if you're able to do it in the past tense, it's even wonderful. So you phrase a sentence which says, like, if supposing I'm working on my anxiety right now. So I say, even though I have this anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. So I'll phrase it slightly differently. And I want you to notice, even though I have had this anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. See the difference? I have had. Now here we are using it in the past tense. And when you use it in the past tense, your mind says, oh, I am putting this behind me. This anxiety is no longer here in the present. I have put it behind me. And that is where your mind starts changing. Okay. So this is one way that you can do. Of course, there are no rules, hard and fast rules. You can always use what feels comfortable to you. You can always say that even though I have this anxiety, I completely and deeply accept myself. I love myself. I also want to make it clear that you don't have to say any sentence that you don't feel connected to. Because when I was working with my EFT trainer, and she told me that you have to say, I deeply and completely accept myself. I love myself. And I was not able to say it because I had self love issues at that time. So it did not feel natural or genuine or even authentic for me to be saying those sentences. And I said, I am not able to say those sentences. I actually had tears when I was saying that. And it's fine. She told me, you can always say that even though I have this issue, I am choosing to completely and deeply accept myself. I'm learning to completely accept myself. I am a work in progress. I am okay with learning how to completely accept myself. It can be anything, okay? Whatever you feel comfortable with. Now, the fourth part is the sequence. Now, there are 12 major meridians which are tapped during a routine EFT procedure, okay? And each of these correspond to an internal organ, okay? The acupressure and the acupuncture therapists will know exactly which these points coordinate to. We need not know them as such, not required. But the 12 main points are this point below your pinky finger and above your wrist, this from your heart line below here, this distance of 3 fingers. Now this part is called the karate chop point because people who do karate usually break the bricks like this, right? Now this is also called as the PR point or the psychological reversal point. And this is one point which is mainly used in EFT when you want to bring about a radical change or transformation in your thought or belief system. It's called the psychological reversal point. So when you do a set of EFT sequences, which are those 12 points, and you notice that the change you want is still slightly away, then you do this. And then you repeat the procedure. Okay. So this is the karate chop point. Okay. The PR point. The next point is the top of the head, the center of the head here. Okay. The next one is here at the starting of your eyebrow and at the bridge of your nose, between these two. Okay. So this is one point. The next point is here, just towards the outer end of your eye. And there is a small depression you can feel in the bone here. Okay. That point. The next point is just below the pupil of your eye. If you look in the center, just below here, okay, below your eye. Don't poke your eyes, please, just below your eye. The next point is below your nose, below your nostrils, okay, this point, where you see this crease, no? Between the nostrils here, okay. The next point is here, below your lips, above your chin, this point, okay. The next point is you can feel this notch just below your neck, go around 1.5 inches on either side. You will feel your clavicle, this bone, okay. So just below the bone, okay. This is one point. And another point is here, about 4 inches below your armpit. For women, it is the bra strap point, okay. And it's just around a palm span from your armpit. That is the point, okay. There are a few more points. This wrist point, the wrist, okay, and all the tip of your fingers the tip of your fingers, except your ring finger, okay, all of these fingers, and this is called the gamut point. It's in between the ring finger and your little finger or pinky finger. There is a V-shaped bone here, and right where it ends, okay, that particular point, that is called the gamut point. It will feel slightly sore if you just press it, no, you'll feel sore there. Now, these are the points that we'll be doing in any EFT recipe. It is called as a recipe or an algorithm, okay? So which were the 12 main points? The karate chop point, the top of the head, the eyebrow point, corner of the eye, below the eye, below the nose, below the lips, collarbone point, below the armpit. Okay. The technique. And now when I say how do you tap, what do you do, all of this stuff. Okay. You use 2 fingers for tapping or 3 fingers for tapping. When you place your fingers, it's usually your middle finger on your index finger. When you tap, you can always keep the 2 fingers side by side. You can keep 3 fingers side by side and tap. How frequently should I tap? A comfortable rhythm. Not required. No, this. It has to be a comfortable rhythm. And how much pressure should I apply? You're not hammering a nail inside, and neither are you doing this. Let it just be a comfortable, it's just a tap. Okay? It's just a tap. Okay? And how many times should I tap any point? With each affirmation, you can just tap 1 point. What I have noticed is approximately it's around 7 to 8 times that you tap on one particular point. Of course, it can be less, it can be more. It depends. There is no hard and fast rule. And which side should I tap? Tap on any side that you feel comfortable, because meridians are running on both sides. And should I tap on this side only or that side only, or only with one hand or with both hands? Please tap with how many ever hands you want to. We are only given 2. Okay. Should I sit? Should I stand? Should I lie down? You can do whatever you want. There are no restrictions. You can lie down and do tapping. You can stand. You can jog and do tapping. I, in fact, do tapping when I'm walking in the morning. So just make it a routine. And the reason why I'm telling you this is, जब एक situation आता है ना, वो बता के warning देके नहीं आता. That situation will never warn you and then come into your life. It's going to just come in, barge in, and then you have to deal with it. So if you have made this process a practice, a daily practice, a routine, nobody has to tell you in order to use this. You will automatically start using this technique. So especially in cases of panic attacks, especially in cases of depression or PTSD or pain, even when you know you have this technique and you are aware of this, if you make it a routine, the moment you start experiencing certain uncomfortable emotions or situation, you can tap it away. It's just like taking a painkiller or taking a medication. 10-15 minutes may you can have some relief. Isn't it wonderful? And that is why it needs to be built into your routine, in your practice. And you can do it any time of the day. You can do it in the middle of the night. You can do sitting on the potty seat. I mean, there is absolutely no restrictions. I said you, there are no restrictions. There are no contraindications. You can tap with this hand on this side. You can tap with this hand on this side. You can, I mean, think of it, improvise. And EFT is something which is being improvised every single day. We just had a tapping summit which went on for 13 days, which ended just day before yesterday. There's a whole lot of stuff that I'm still trying to assimilate. There's so much new things which are going on in this field of EFT and TFT. Okay. So just experience this for yourself. See what works, what formula works for you. What works for me may be different from what works for you. So try it out. Okay. So this is the technique that I have shared in the WhatsApp, and I'll make a short video of this again, the actual procedure, so you get a very clear picture about how to do this. And how do you come up with EFT recipe? Now, we went through those 5 steps, right from identifying what is the emotion. So this is something that had helped me in creating an EFT script, or trying to even speak about what it is that is troubling me. Okay, so when you're trying to make phrases, so this is something that can help, and this is something that I have posted. And when we are doing EFT, it's usually that we start with a particular emotion, which is usually negative. I said we start from -10 and we go, our main aim is to go towards +10. Our aim is not to stop at 0. It is to go towards +10. Okay. So you go from fear to being confident, from being anger to being peaceful, from anxiety to calmness, from unfairness to being even, from disgust to being feeling better. Okay. So this is something that I've again posted. Introspection points. So call it food for thought. So this is something that all of us need to think about, give some thought to. So how good is my emotional vocabulary? Am I even aware of what emotions I'm experiencing in my body, in my mind? What is going on? Okay. How good am I at identifying my triggers? Do I know what triggers me? What brings out those emotions? What belief systems am I holding on to? And how did they originate? Are these belief systems helping me grow, or are they dragging me down? How eager am I to change something about my life which is not helping me thrive? And what am I willing to do for this? Lastly, what is going to be my action plan? Okay. Now here is something.
अरे हमारे गांव में एक चौकीदार हुआ करता था। वो रात को पहरा देते वक्त जोर जोर से चिल्लाता था, ऑल इज वेल, और हम लोग सुकून से सो जाते थे। एक रात गांव में चोरी हुई तो पता चला कि साले को रात में कुछ दिखते नहीं है यार, ऐसे चिल्लाता रहता था ऑल इज वेल, ऑल इज वेल, और हम लोग बेफिक्र होकर सो भी जाते थे। उस दिन एक बात समझ में आई, ये जो अपना दिल है ना, बड़ा डरपोक है यार, इसको बेवकूफ बना के रखो। लाइफ में कितनी भी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम हो ना, उसको बोलो कोई बात नहीं चाचू, सब ठीक ठाक है, ऑल इज वेल, ऑल इज वेल।
So let's just put our hands on our heart and just say once, all is well. All is well. Thank you all so much for having attended today's workshop. I'll be making another video of the entire process, so you can do it along with me, and I'll post it soon. Thank you so much.